not your father! No! Run!
Oh hi, Jay's here from Lantern Side Story, and have you ever played with sand, Lego, puppets, or sandbox game? If you did, well this video is just for you cause I'm gonna tell you how I made my sandbox game infinitely more fun by using my creativity. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that alarm button. I was always a kid with imagination. When I was young, my favorite toys were my hands. I pretended these two hands are two characters and made fight scenes and epic battles. It was quite a handy toy, cause you don't have to bother taking anything else with you, and you can play with them wherever you want. I remember one time my parents dragged me to a classic orchestra performance, and I was in like elementary school, so I didn't really like it. So I pulled my both hands and just had a time of my own playing with my imagination. As of now, I still love making stories of my own, and that's one of the things I do in this channel, showing you my version of the game with my own story. And the game I'm gonna play today is the Islanders. It is a very simple casual game with a cute building design, and you can just place buildings freely on these randomly generated beautiful looking islands. There are two mods in this game. One is the high score challenge and the other is the sandbox mod. In the score challenge, you have to consider the synergies between buildings to place them where it yields the best score. You have to collect these points to receive buildings, and if you run out of both buildings and the points, the game is over. In the sandbox mode, you can just build everything without any restriction, and that's what I really wanted, because I just wanted to build beautiful islands without worrying about resources. To be honest, I was a bit disappointed when I first played it, because there are only like 36 types of buildings. The design does change to fit the atmosphere of the island, but there were so many things missing. Where is the castle gates, the bridges, the barracks, large ships? I do understand that the simplicity is the nature of this game, and it is a very small indie game, but it was just not enough to fulfill my imagination. But in making this video, I really wanted to try it out again. And while I was watching Minecraft YouTube channels, a moment of epiphany just came to me. To make the sandbox game more fun, what you really have to do is to add the story and the theme to the buildings and design. And that story will fuel the imagination and motivation to build more and more. And here's what happened. So this is the record of me building my first island. I didn't have plans yet, or actually I tried not to plan it too much. First thing came into my mind is the contrast between the upper plateau and the lower parts of the island. I started to build a condensed city on top with the giant towers, some hot air balloons, and a leisure oasis on the back for the nobles of the city. Then I put some basic industry of the island, the brewery for the lower side and the gold mines for the nobles, some sand pits and mines and brick factories on the other side of the island. And there were two big turns while I was building it. I had the idea of winged people ruling this island, and that led me to add bunch of towers, which made me to name the island the Towers. And the other is the use of wooden platform and the hot air balloons to make something similar to a transportation method between the islands. And you'll keep seeing these balloons on the other islands. Also, I put a lot of pubs throughout the island, and that was the final piece of puzzle to make the story of the island. So, the history behind this island is that it was inhabited by the two races, the eagle people and the chicken people. And eagle people dominated the upper part of the island and the gold mine, making them the ruling class over the other chickens. And the chickens tried to uprise against them in the past, giving the city walls and towers on the plateau some background. And as the rebellion failed, they became much more disappointed in the reality and started to drink their life away. The twist I added as a last touch was that the eagles also started to drink a lot, maybe a little too much, and eventually they started to lose their ability to fly. So they're trying their best to hide it from the chickens by not going down the island, separating the two walls even more. As I was making these stories, I actually got really fond of these islands, and even though it wasn't perfect, and I was actually considering not to include this island on the video, but I just loved the backstory and how some of it developed to shape the shared theme along other islands, so I decided to keep it. Before we move on to the next island, I want to share my mixed feeling about the Sandbox games. I am a huge fan of Sandbox games like Minecraft, Terraria, or Cities Skylines, but often I find myself feeling frustrated. So, there are two extremes of enjoying a Sandbox game. One is the survival, and the other is free creation. And I find myself losing the balance between these two, and because of that, lose interest in the game in general. Free building part lets you do whatever you want. I mean, whatever. You can basically do anything that your imagination takes you, but the problem is that the imagination can fly away while you have to place the blocks manually one by one to follow it. I know there are people who can do it and make great masterpieces, but I guess I'm not one of them. And at the end of the day, that passion turns into a frustration, and I just give up on trying. So I played the survival mode, and the good thing about survival is that it gives you purpose and objective. When you start a game, you have to find something to eat, build a home, find resources, and after that you might want to go on an adventure, fight bosses, taming pets, do other quests, achievements, go on a war with people, and build something cool with resources you got, get the resources to build something cool, and get tired of manually doing it, so you start building an automated resource farm, and so on and so forth, and having that objectives pushes you to go on. That's so good. I do love it. I actually have some kind of addiction in doing this because I was playing a game called Forager while I was making this video, and I completed 91% of the achievement in 4 days, playing a total of 24 hours. And I know that if I wasn't making the video, I could have played in more than 50 hours. Anyway, the problem of survival mode is that there is an ending. And when I reach it, the motivation isn't that strong anymore. It just turns into a free building mode with limited resources. And here we're back again. I had a similar problem when I was doing the sandbox mode of the Islanders. I wanted to build something amazing, but I felt like I'm not good enough, and the lack of contents destroyed my motivation even more so. But now, with all the stories and background I'm putting into it, I'm really enjoying it the way that I never expected. And I know that some of you might relate to this issue I had, and I hope this video gives you an insight to make it more fun. So this is the second island. Don't really have a name, just a small fishing village, and I just love the idea of connecting the islands with the platform. You can notice that I started to use rectangular buildings and the circular buildings separately to give shared themes to the part of each island. Also, I added this tower to represent the lighthouse, and the balloon station is still here with us. Also, I tried out the temple with 4 monuments on each corners and a road leading to the temple. Easy and fast build. This island was the first icy climate I saw in this game, and I just loved it. I made a small village with a few circular buildings, and the people living here are just trying to survive out in this harsh, freezing climate. You can also find a balloon station on top with the warehouse next to it, because this community relies on trade, for it has just a few resources on the island. I showed this island to my girlfriend, and she said it does look a bit like those Antarctic bases, and that instantly reminded me of the movie The Thing, and that made this emptiness of the island much more creepier. This is the Isle of Fingers, the second. Why is it second? Well, I actually drew an island that has every part of geography that I wish to include, and here is the picture of it. I tried to make this island on another sandbox game, which I gave up. I might try it in the future, but anyway. This is the first Isle of Fingers. You can see the 5 pillars, the fingers around the island. The main castle is on top of the Pride Rock, an homage to Lion King and the Ark Survival Evolved. And these 2 islands were connected by giant bridges, which I took the motif from Osgiliath in The Lord of the Rings. Other part of the island was just me trying to make it cool, to have different things like porch, square around the middle finger, the markets, the farm, and you can see the other pillars are connected to either the main keep or the barracks. The bay on the other side of the island is actually invaded by the enemies. So, there was another story behind this picture of a war and siege battle and how the attackers sent an assassin because they couldn't conquer the island. So I had this wonderful amalgamation of my favorite island, and when I first saw this island came up in the Islanders, I just was so excited. The fingers are still there, and I have a hill to build the main castle, and I used the temple and towers to represent the main castle, and I built the extended bridge connecting the small pillars that lead to the balloon station. And as I was building this bridge, I instantly imagined the escape scene of a princess while castle was overrun by the invaders, and you can actually see the other balloons escaping the island. I made the upper city and lower city, both of them having a wall surrounding them, giant farmland because I haven't used the farm blocks in any other islands yet, and I actually put the invasion forces represented by the balloons, military tents, and the warehouse. Okay, this is just me building a fast Oasis-like island, and while I have this play on the background, I just wanted to share one other thing that I learned. What was really difficult was to stop me from trying to be perfect. When I do something that I like, I sometimes become a semi-perfectionist, and game is one thing that I really like. When I start a game, I always make plans. I actually enjoy planning my gameplay, but sometimes you just can't accomplish according to the plans. And that frustrates me so hard to a point that I just give up doing what I love. When I first started YouTube, this was the thing that I struggled. I could hear me inside keep saying, this is not perfect, this is not good, and it could have stopped me anytime. To block out that anxiety, I started to keep saying to myself that I don't have to be perfect, just try to get better than the last video. With this and the emotional support from the loved ones and you guys actually helped me a lot to fuel my motivation. And I find it quite similar to these Sandbox games. You don't have to be perfect or make a masterpiece. You can just enjoy it, and sometimes it can just turn into a great work, or at least that genuine experience of enjoyment can itself turn to become a great story. I know people say that you should always dream big, and I agree, but don't be afraid to take the first small steps, for you won't know where it will take you if you don't start to walk. Maybe in the future, I should try to make the Isle of Fingers again, perhaps in Minecraft or some other Sandbox game. We'll have to see how it goes, and I want you to be there with me in that future. Please share your experience with the Sandbox games on the comment. Your like, subscribe, and alarm helps me a lot, so thanks again for watching this video, and I'll be seeing you next time.